It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. I know the anxiety that comes with watching a loved one struggle with a nonlinear path. This podcast was created to fight back against the narrow picture of success painted by social media. Each week, we share authentic stories from people who changed course, maybe failed, and ultimately found their own definition of success. These are the stories you need to hear to prove that changing your mind is common and you don't have to have it all figured out at 18. So if you're a parent or you're a young adult looking for a little proof, you're home. Now let's get into today's episode. And if you'd like to explore how I can help your young adult, you can always schedule a free consultation through my website link in the show notes. Today, my guest is Debbie Murad. Debbie is a seasoned social worker with over 30 years of experience in both clinical and macro level practice. She has worked with a diverse range of clients, including adolescents, and has made significant contributions as a faculty member of the USC School of Social Work for 11 years. In addition, Debbie is the founder and clinical director of Beach Cities Gateway, which is a life skills program that uniquely combines mental health treatment with comprehensive coaching and mentoring for individuals aged 15 to 32. Let's not wait any longer. Here's Debbie. All right, Debbie, thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
Thanks, Joanna. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited. Fun fact, I was actually out in the area last week. So this is kind of funny as I was touring officially Beach Cities, which we will talk about at some point, obviously, just kind of letting the cat out of the bag of what Debbie is doing. But it's kind of fun to see you again also soon.
It is fun. Yeah.
All right. So let's just get started. Why don't you tell our listeners, where did you grow up and what was the messaging that you were hearing personally, like either from your family or the community in which you were raised, on what you were supposed to do after high school?
Okay. So I grew up in Pasadena, California, actually minutes from the Eaton fire, if you remember that from a year ago. So really, it's like the hills of Altadena. And my parents had immigrated just a couple of years before I was born from the Middle East. So that had a lot to do with the messaging. Mm-hmm. And they started a business and they did really well. And they really doubled down on education. So they did not have an education. They were business people, but they valued it intensely. So I went to a lot of private schools. I went to college prep school. This was back in the 80s, by the way. And so there's that cultural overlay too. But the message was achieve, 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 achieve in the conventional way. And there was a lot of pressure to get good grades and to perform. And they had this thing about becoming a doctor because that's the best profession that you could have. And so there was a lot of pressure to do that. And I didn't really need that kind of pressure, maybe a little bit. Every kid needs a little bit to know that their parents care about their grades. But I was a go-getter naturally. And so I actually feel like all that pressure stymied some of that for me. Because I don't know, life was interesting to me. And that, that heaviness interfered with that. And, anybody that comes from the Middle East, there's a lot of generational trauma and cultural trauma. So all of that was in the house, and I didn't realize that. Yeah. So I didn't really rebel. I did in these subtle ways, in that I really pushed to go away to college, which was a big deal. I even pushed to have a boyfriend in high school, which was a big deal. I mean, we're really talking about, just tight cultural values and very traditional. And I was thinking, like, it was kind of lost when I was in 10th grade, for example, thinking, well, what do I want to do? Do I really want to do all this academic stuff? Is this what's interesting to me? What am I interested in? I was always introspective. So that was a place that I enjoyed going in my head. And I thought, well, the parents want this. And it was really a moment that I can make them happy, or I could figure out how I want to live my life. Like, for years and years and years. So I thought, well, let me see about this school thing. And in the meantime, in summers, I would work in their business as a cashier, and that was not something that I wanted to do. So I learned about being like unskilled labor force and what that was like. And I'm like, no, I needed something really stimulating. So I thought, well, I kind of want to check out school, but see what's interesting to me. I don't want to be a doctor. I knew that. I think science is interesting, but I did not want to study science. I did not. And so I ended up going to college, and a small liberal arts college, and fell in love with the social sciences. That was a whole new world for me that I hadn't been exposed to because I had a very traditional education. And that was great. I'm so glad I just seemed to randomly choose a school, and they had a strong social science department. And then I felt at one point, a couple of years into it, gosh, I'm living in a bubble here. I need to really experience the world. And so I went off campus and volunteered at a domestic violence shelter because that was sort of like the only thing around. And that kind of directed me. And I actually had another moment, just one of these moments where I thought, we're all living on this earth. We could be like self-centered this was the me generation in the 80s, remember? And we could think about ourselves and our own well-being, which we do, but we're also kind of responsible for each other. So I just had that little insight. And so that's what guided me into, the volunteering at the domestic violence shelter. They teach you how to be a counselor. So I did these crisis calls, like within 2 months, I would say. I was taking a call and helping a woman in incredible crisis, the kind of crisis that I had never been exposed to. And I was hooked. So did my homework and thought I wanted to be a psychologist. But the more I kind of researched it over the next couple of years, I realized I wanted to be a social worker. So that also felt a little bit rebellious, but it was something that I felt passionate about. And I love social work because of the social justice component. And it has more of a macro lens. So it looks at sort of the impact of the greater environment in the community and how that affects the individual. And it's not just focused on a one-on-one relationship. Mm-hmm. And so I did go to grad school. I did work a little bit at a teen girls residential home, but went to graduate school really quickly. And I was just excited to be in the program. I love the program, to be perfectly honest. And I'll tell you this. So, my achievement-focused parents are like, well, what's social work? And, I tried to explain it like, well, can I just say you're going into psychology? And I'm like, well, if you really want to, but I'm not going to say that. That was my dad. And it's like, well, I mean, if you feel like you need to lie, go ahead. But this is what social work is. And very proud of being a social worker. And I didn't go in it for the money. That's the saying that everybody has. I just did it for the passion. So I worked at a nonprofit for a few years doing this real community-based social work. It was during the AIDS epidemic and before the AIDS cocktail came on the scene, which changed everything as far as AIDS, a treatable disease. And I don't know how I landed this job. I really wanted to work at this organization. Like, to be honest, grad school didn't really prepare me much for this, but I was hired as a little project coordinator. I supervised 4 people. I'd never supervised anybody. And I walked the streets of LA, and we would go to places where women were particularly at risk for HIV because either their sexual behavior, their addictions and addictive behaviors. And there were the growing number of people contracting AIDS, but there wasn't a lot of information known about that. So we would talk to them, and then I would do crisis work, crisis therapy, and we'd provide all kinds of support services related to all the issues that would cause them, to become infected. And it was pretty wild. I mean, I learned a lot. I went to places that I would never have gone to. I worked with people that were homeless on Skid Row. But this organization was new and was growing. And for somebody like me who was put in this position of leadership, it was really small, but I was also encouraged to help grow the organization. And so I wrote a lot of grant proposals, And we would conduct these needs assessments in the communities. Well, what do you need here? And then we would write the grants to get the money to come in, and the programs grew. So in just a few years' time, I think it was supervising maybe 20 folks.
Wow.
And providing a bunch of different types of services with addiction, with teens, that were homeless. And then I had another moment where I thought, gosh, I'm in my 20s. I'd broken up with a boyfriend that I had for a long time. I'm not really attached. I got all my hours that I can get licensed as a social worker, clinical license, but I don't want to take that test now. I want to see the world. And I don't mean travel, because I had already had the privilege of traveling. So I thought, I'm going to leave and I'm going to travel for a couple of years, maybe join the Peace Corps or something, work for an NGO. And I talked to my supervisor, who was my mentor, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. I'm going to the Middle East. I wanted to go to the Middle East, and I wanted to do some traveling, like adventure travel too. And she's like, well, you're crazy, but definitely come back and I'll have a job for you. And she loved me. I loved her. And so I ended up leaving probably 6 months later, because there were some grants that came in and wanted to get these programs launched. And so I ended up traveled about about 6 to 8 months by bike, throughout Europe and then Turkey. And then I worked for an NGO in the Middle East. And so I was gone about 2 years and learned a lot. I did some economic development. I worked with some young people. It was great. And I came back and I worked as a child therapist, 5 to 18-year-olds, learned a ton, and then worked with my old nonprofit to start some treatment programs, residential, non-residential. And I did that. That whole thing was 15 years. So then I kind of burnt out really on the nonprofit world. I mean, I love starting programs. I love building teams. I had an amazing team. We did some really good work, but there's a lot of heaviness and messiness in the nonprofit world. There's never enough money for the services or the staff that you want to hire. There are always accounting problems because you can never get enough admin money to support those needs. And I thought, I'm kind of burnt out. I had gotten married. My daughter was very young. And so I got this opportunity to teach grad school at USC, the School of Social Work there, the one I graduated from, actually. And I took it. I'm like, well, this is exciting. I'm going to teach. It was so challenging. Another huge challenge. And and I was hired as adjunct, which are considered like low-hanging fruit, in the academic world. And boy, they work you to death. And you just feel like, oh, well, I'm happy that I'm given this opportunity, but they work you. And eventually I was given a full-time contract because I did a really good job. I mean, I just worked really hard and was real creative with my classes. And I had a good rapport with the students. And I really believed in what they were doing because they are the next generation of service providers. So I took it seriously. And at the same time that I started there, I started my private practice because I wanted autonomy. And I enjoyed that. And then I was doing both at the same time. And that's been I'm going to say the last 15 years, 16 years with the private practice. USC, at year 11, I was just burnt out. Like, I'm living in this world. I became very good at it, but my weekends were taken up by grading. I thought, I got to do something else. I just felt this yearning to do something else for years, honestly. And so it was a little bit done. And so I left USC and felt just a huge relief after 11 years. And figured out what I wanted to do. I was in the private practice. Life was actually pretty good. It was coasting. And, we're just in a good place, with my husband. And I thought, I got to do something else. And it hit me, another moment. And I tried to let go of that. I couldn't. But I will say, so my daughter's neurodivergent. And she had just graduated from high school during COVID. And COVID was a disaster for her, like it is for a lot of young people. It was for a lot of young people. And so she has ADHD. She also has Tourette's. She has autism. She's very intelligent. She needed a lot of support because she has a lot and had a lot of executive functioning challenges. So her life was very, very difficult. So it was very challenging to provide the right kind of support. There's a lot, I don't need to tell you or even your audience, I'll be interfacing with schools and getting her into the right place and the right support. And then she would push back because she got tired of it by the time she was in high school. She didn't want the support. So I noticed a few things in the private practice that young people like her after high school really needed support. Maybe they'd go off to college. Maybe they were lost trying to figure out what their purpose was. They struggled with depression. She struggled with depression like during COVID and her first year of college. And I was also seeing that with other people, the young people that I was working with in the private practice. And I thought, well, they need something else. They need a program like the one my daughter ended up in. So she ended up going to Wilderness. And then from there, she went to a transitional young adult program in Idaho. And she was there for 2 years, wonderful program, and got a lot of support. Again, she requires a lot of executive functioning support. She very, very much wants to go to college. And my thoughts were, well, you don't have to, or you don't have to right away. You can do a gap year. I mean, I did not want her to feel that pressure that I felt. Mm-hmm. And you can figure things out. You can get a job, but she really wants to. And after we let her fail her first year of college, we knew that was coming. So, because kind of going back and forth a little bit, but so she graduated during COVID. She wanted to go away to school. She insisted she can do it. She didn't need any help. So she went. We moved her in, and I just held my breath for a really long time, and everything that I thought would happen did. She has a hard time with social skills, although she loves having friends. She's had a lot of social rejection, so there was a lot of avoidance there in a new environment. And that's where she got depressed in college. And she was overwhelmed with all the workload expectations and managing it all on her own. And so we let her fail. And then after that, she's like, well, okay, I need help. I'm ready. She was humble. We were humbled. And so she very much took on the support that was offered to her in Idaho. And then she's trans, and she was done with Idaho after 2 years. She wanted to come back, so she moved back home. And then while she was doing that, that's where my inspiration for Beach Cities Gateway came from. I thought, gosh, that's a great program. And there are a lot of programs like that are really great. They're 24/7 programs, and they provide all this support. I'm like, that's wonderful. And I wanted to start one, like a lot of parents probably do. A lot of programs are started by folks with lived experience in one form or another. I thought, I want to do something here in LA. I want to, I don't want to just be in private practice. My world became small, and I was used to doing things, like at my nonprofit that took me all over the city, meeting all kinds of people. It's like, I want to go back to that. I want to build a team. I want to provide a service that I know is going to help people in the community. Because it's my community. I know the parents, clients, and then my own daughter. So that was all kind of happening at the same time.
So let's do the quick elevator, if somebody's like, Beach Cities Gateway, what's that? Give us the 30-second spiel of who you serve. And well, actually, let's start with this. What's your job title now that you've let us know, I created this, but what's your job title? And then tell us, who does Beach Cities serve and what do you do?
Okay. So my job title, CEO and clinical director. And then what we do is we provide mental health support and wraparound coaching and mentoring for teens and young adults, primarily who are neurodivergent, although that's not necessary. They could just have other mental health issues that affect their life skills and their independent living skills. So we work a lot with executive functioning. We work a lot with ADHD and autism, but some folks just have, I'm not going to say just, but severe anxiety or bipolar or what have you, and they need help with the executive functioning and the life skills. So we tailor our service to each individual, so they can work with us 10 hours a week. They can work with us 2 hours a week. They can meet with the therapist. And, we've got the teams, we've got the therapist, and we have the coach that could work with them on a variety of life skills, like their social skills, finding their purpose, because I think it's really important that we all live with purpose. It helps us in a number of ways to function in the world. So we can conduct thorough assessments like the Greenwood assessment to help them figure out how their interests speak to a sense of purpose. But some of them come in, they know what their purpose is, but they're afraid to take any steps on it because they failed a lot. We can help them with academic skills. We can help them with vocational or career skills. So they are, on paper, it's 15 to 32, but because everything we do is so tailored, we've got older folks and we've got younger folks.
And we'll make sure that we have the link for people to explore more in the show notes, which also will include your contact information, because this is an interview about you, Debbie, right? Here's your story leading to like where you are now, which is awesome. And it's also an opportunity for people to learn more about what it is that you're doing, just as much as it is an opportunity for another parent to contact you and say, outside of beach cities, like, thank you for sharing your personal story about parenting a neurodivergent young adult, kind of a deal. So anyways, call to action. Anybody listening, please reach out to Debbie. So last question, and of course it's loaded right at the end. Now that we've heard your whole story leading to what it is that you're doing now, do you see yourself as successful?
I will say mostly yes. And the reason I'll say that is because I really had a mission, and that's what guided me in my work. So it wasn't about a lot of outward achievement or making a lot of money. And then when I did take on launching this program that was very frightening, was not something I needed to do, and I almost didn't do it, but I felt like it was purposeful. So I feel like I'm successful because I chose to follow a sense of purpose. The other part of me feels like, well, I could have done this earlier. This could be bigger. I have a lot of goals. I have a lot of dreams for this program. So then there's that voice, right? So
that voice is what continues to drive you, or like, you're striving towards what the evolution is in that purpose.
That's very true. Yes.
Okay. I love it. Well, Debbie, thank you for carving out some time, being a guest on the podcast. I know that there is going to be parents or young adults, that are listening to this or will listen to this, that are really going to find your story to strike meaning within them, right? Or validate or normalize or whatever it is that they need. So I can't express gratitude enough for you being willing to share your story and being a guest on the podcast, and just for continuing to open these doors of opportunity for yourself that had led you to being a business owner to a great organization that's serving our youth right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that, Joanna. I appreciate that.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guests for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email Joanna at lilleyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilleyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.